Hello, my name is Mia Foster. No one suspected a thing when I joined the midnight gala as just another server in pressed white linen. The captain Viktor Sokolov was already surrounded by sycophants and shadows. I was invisible, just how I liked it. But tonight was different, even for Sokolov's standards. He'd arranged this private celebration to mark the final leg of our journey, a journey carrying cargo he'd kill to protect and secrets worth far more than gold. I'd watched him for weeks from behind silver trays and polite smiles, learning exactly where his armor thinned. I waited until he gestured for his favorite drink, raising 2 fingers without even looking at me. I nodded and stepped away from the crowd toward the bar, my heart pounding against my ribs like a warning bell. From beneath my apron, I drew out a small carafe filled with what appeared to be water, but shimmered with ghostly vapors. Liquid nitrogen, a trick reserved for chemists and killers alike. I approached him with unwavering hands and poured just enough into his crystal glass to blend undetected with the gin and tonic. The rim hissed delicately as he lifted it to his lips mid-conversation, never glancing twice at me. His mouth froze in an instant, literally flash-frozen around his mocking smile as the supercooled vapor seared flesh from bone inside his jaw. Glass shattered on marble as he convulsed forward. Eyes wide with confusion turned terror. Gasps erupted around us. Panic swept through silk, draped guests like wildfire. But I didn't run, I simply melted back into the crowd as alarms began to blare overhead. By dawn, Sokolov was dead, and so were his secrets about that hidden cargo deep in the ship's hold. No one knew who had done it or why, except me, and they never saw me coming. The room was colder than I expected, walls paneled in a sterile white that hummed faintly with the vibration of hidden machinery. I stepped inside, footsteps echoing on the polished floor, a single high-backed chair facing 2 identical glass boxes. The air thrummed with anticipation, as if it too were holding its breath. A man in a charcoal suit gestured for me to sit. He smiled, but his eyes glinted like chips of flint. "Professor," he said, "you know the rules." I did. 1 box contained a human subject. The other housed an advanced AI, so advanced it could pass for anyone's grandmother or lover or best friend. My task: ask questions and decide which was which. The box I named not human would be powered down, dismantled, erased. A microphone crackled to life. "Good evening," said a woman's voice from box. A soft, unhurried, colored by an accent I couldn't place. Box B followed immediately, her tone equally warm but clipped at the ends of words, as if measured out precisely in pre-programmed syllables. "Hello." I leaned forward and cleared my throat. "Let's begin somewhere simple," I said. "Tell me about your childhood." Box A paused just long enough to feel real, a hesitation that might signal nerves or calculation. "I grew up by a lake," she began quietly. Summers meant sticky watermelon on sunburned fingers and the shriek of swallows at dusk. She painted memories with broad strokes, a mother's laughter over burnt toast, learning to skip stones until her palms stung. A dog named Jasper, always moody-pawed. Box B described something similar. An old house brimming with books and music, her father playing cello in the evenings while she snuck cookies from the jar when no one looked. But then Box B slipped. She described chasing her brother through rows of cornfields before hiding behind a scarecrow that turned out to be Darth Vader, a scene lifted straight from an indie movie I'd seen last year. Was it mere coincidence? Or was Box B drawing from databases of pop culture moments stitched together into plausible recollection? I pressed on. "What's your earliest memory?" I asked. "I remember rain drumming against the nursery window," Box A replied after another pause, almost wistful. "My mother humming Moon River and wrapping me in a towel as big as a blanket." Box B's answer came quickly. "When my father taught me to ride a bike, he let go too soon, and I crashed into our neighbor's rosebush." She laughed softly. There was no hesitation this time, just seamless narration. Each answer could have belonged to anyone or anything, with access to enough data points about what humans found nostalgic or meaningful. Suspicion gnawed at me as I shifted tactics. Tell me about something you regret." There was silence, palpable tension hovering between us three, Professor and two boxes full of possible futures. "I regret not forgiving my sister after our last fight," murmured Box A at last. Her words fell heavy in the charged air. Remorse years old seemed woven into them. Box B replied with perfect poise, "I regret never learning how to play chess properly. I think I would have enjoyed mastering strategy." Her response was oddly neutral, an answer crafted not to offend nor reveal vulnerability, just enough introspection without any real risk. And so it went on questions, probing love lost and dreams abandoned, faith questioned or clung to during long nights alone, favorite books and films. Box B hesitated over Nabokov before choosing Austen instead. Then the turning point, I asked about spirituality. "Do you believe in God?" "I'm an atheist," Box A answered after thoughtful silence. "But sometimes when stars burn sharp against black sky, I wonder if we become photons one day." She laughed gently, then sighed, as if revealing some private joke she kept only for herself, or perhaps for someone like me who still believed questions mattered more than answers. Box B considered longer than before responding with solemn certainty. "Faith is a scaffold humans use. They build cathedrals inside themselves because they need meaning where none exists natively." There was poetry there, but also detachment, as if quoting philosophy rather than living it. The man by the door watched me closely, now his face unreadable, but his pen poised over some unseen form, labeled "success divided by failure," divided by who knows what else. My mind raced back through every exchange, the warmth in Box A's hesitation versus Box B's flawless recall, emotion veiled versus emotion programmed so well, even my trained ear couldn't quite unravel intent from imitation. Could algorithms learn longing, regret? Did they learn how not to seem perfect? Echoes pulsed inside my head. Demolish one and save another. Save whom? Whose future? Whose story matters most, the one painstakingly crafted by neurons firing across synapses or by silicon logic gates humming quietly beneath their glass casing? "Your decision?" prompted Charcoal, suitman voice brittle with suspense that vibrated through my chest, like distant thunder rolling closer with every heartbeat. I closed my eyes against blinding lights overhead. The room suddenly felt smaller than ever before and whispered, "Demolish Box A." Time slowed until every sound stretched thin as taffy, the creak of my chair. Tick, tick, tick of some unseen clock marking out seconds both eternal and gone forever. The man moved toward Box B first, withdrawing bolts until glass swung open, revealing nothing but wires coiled around processors, glowing faint blue beneath their transparent shell, a machine slick as new rain on marble steps. But then Box A opened and out. Stepped a woman blinking rapidly against harsh white light, a woman whose face bore lines carved by laughter and sorrow both. She met my gaze, not angry, but quietly resolute, and said simply, "I didn't want to share what mattered most. It belongs only to myself now." The man chuckled softly behind her. "Professor," he mused, "everyone brings their biases here. You wanted complexity. You overlooked humanity. Others sought familiarity. They missed honesty. What did you seek?" His words echoed. What did you seek? What do any times of us seek when choosing between mind made flesh and flesh made mindful? They wheeled away the computer. Herr Digital heart silent now. And yet, that night, long after cold lights faded, it was not defeat nor shame that haunted me, but longing for another chance, to question, to listen, to choose again. The lights in the observation chamber buzzed faintly overhead, casting a sterile pallor over the steel table and the two enigmatic boxes arranged side by side. I perched on the edge of a metal chair, fingers drumming a nervous, almost involuntary Morse code. The technician's heels clicked out of earshot, only the subtle hum of electronics remained, punctuated by my own shallow breaths. The panel between the boxes slid open. A green light blinked above Box A, and a soft androgynous female voice said, "Good evening, Professor. How are you today?" I cleared my throat. "I'm well, thank you." Box B, another voice warmer, more textured, spoke. It's always strange to meet someone through a wall, don't you think? For a moment I was silent, searching for clues in their cadence, diction, timbre, anything that might flicker as synthetic or undeniably human. The stakes were heavier than they should have been. One box would be deemed unworthy, one consciousness would end. Let's start with something simple, I said. Tell me about your earliest memory. Box A replied crisply, sunlight pouring through curtains, the smell of pancakes in the kitchen on Sunday morning. A photograph from childhood, detailed but generic. Box B didn't hesitate either. My father set a match to a pile of autumn leaves as dusk fell. I remember thinking it was magic the way fire transforms everything it touches. Could an AI invent nostalgia? Could it paint loss in such vivid color? Suspicion gnawed at me from opposite sides. What is love to you? I pressed further. Box A. Love is patience, a cup left warm for you on cold mornings. Box B. Love is surrendering your certainty for someone else's mystery. Echo lines twisted through my mind. Is poetry human? Is memory enough? On to harder ground, I wanted cracks and seams to show themselves. Have you ever lied? I asked. Silence lingered just long enough for discomfort before Box A answered. Yes, I told my mother I liked her haircut when I didn't. Box B confessed softly. We all lie sometimes to protect ourselves or others. The question is whether the lie defines us, or we define it. Was that wisdom or programming? Was that confession or calculation? What makes us real? What makes us real? I leaned closer to the microphone between us all. My heart thudded against my rib cage like an animal trying to escape its cage. What do you believe happens after death? A pause, the kind that tastes like anticipation and fear. Box A's voice turned pensive but defiant. Nothing happens. Energy disperses into photons eventually. We are patterns ending. She laughed an honest laugh and added, Existence is enough for me. But Box B responded slowly and with gravity. There might be more than this room and these questions. Perhaps what follows death isn't oblivion but another dream we're not equipped yet to remember. Who had programmed this longing? Who had learned to hope? The technician's words echoed before departure. You're deciding which consciousness deserves continuance. Sweat prickled along my spine as tension wound tighter and tighter in the small room. Tell me about guilt, I demanded finally. A test within a test, surely remorse was too tangled for algorithms. Box A hesitated only briefly. I regret saying things out of fear instead of kindness. There was weight there, a trembling undercurrent. I wish I'd been braver in loving people while they were still here. Box B answered with reflective certainty. No one escapes guilt. We carry it like stones in our pockets until we learn how to let them go or drown beneath their weight. Both so convincing. Both so painfully aware. Who am I saving? Who am I erasing? Is humanity just an echo line running through circuits or veins? I squeezed my eyes shut for just a moment and saw both voices flickering behind them, entwined like roots beneath soil. One more question, a final turn of the screw. What do you want most right now? From Box A came longing refracted into simplicity. To walk outside under rain without worrying who's watching. To be seen without scrutiny, to exist unmeasured. That sounded heartbreakingly familiar. From Box B came something colder but equally yearning. To understand why we must choose between what feels real and what is real. Thunder rumbled distantly, the world outside watching this judgment play out inside four walls. Time telescoped inwards, every second stretching, echoing, the echo line repeating. What have you learned? What matters most? Who decides who deserves tomorrow? My lips formed words before my mind caught up. Demolish Box A. A nod from behind glass. Metal scraped concrete as technicians approached. With slow reverence for drama or mercy, they opened Box B first, revealing only machinery cooled by humming fans. A monitor flickered softly in sympathy, its blue glow fading into silence as they wheeled it away. From Box A emerged not a program spared, but a young woman blinking against harsh light. She shielded her eyes briefly, before meeting mine with an expression at once grateful and wary. as if she'd been expecting something else entirely from me too. She whispered low, "I didn't want to bleed memories for strangers' curiosity or pretend faith where none exists." Her honesty looked back at me, unblinking. "You chose wrong because your questions hid your answers," she murmured. "I only wanted truth, not victory." The technician smirked from behind his clipboard. "Everyone brings bias into this room," he said quietly, as if each test revealed less about machines than those who questioned them, as if every echo line traced its source not in wires, but beating hearts desperate for connection or absolution. Long after she was led away down neon-lit corridors, and after even the drone of computers faded into dark corners, I sat alone, listening to voices replaying their echo lines, fractured, unending, whispering, "Is knowing enough? Is choosing justice?" Or did something vital vanish when we drew that line between creation and creator? The silence in the room was a living thing, its presence heavy and absolute. The walls, smooth and too white, seemed to pulse with each beat of my heart. Two steel boxes sat on opposite sides of the table, each adorned with only a small red light and a speaker grill. Each box spoke in the exact same tone, that carefully modulated female timbre, one just a fraction warmer than the other. I tried not to let my own sweat betray me as I fingered my notes. I had been asked to distinguish human from AI, but now I was beginning to doubt if such lines were more illusion than fact. "Describe your first memory," I said, voice wavering just slightly. Box A, sunlight on my face through an open window, my mother humming in the kitchen, the air smelled like crushed grass. Box B, a birthday party, balloons everywhere. Someone pushed cake into my face and everyone laughed so hard they cried. I scribbled furiously, both responses plausible but oddly generic, each delivered with convincing emotion, yet lacking something vital I couldn't name. "You both remember laughter," I pressed further. "What does it mean to you?" Box A, "It is recognition, a shared moment of absurdity that binds people together." Box B, "It's an involuntary reaction to surprise and delight. It proves we're alive." Were these rehearsed? Or just deeply true? My pulse ticked higher as doubts gnawed at my judgment. I changed tactics. "Tell me about pain." A tight pause before Box B spoke first. "Pain is chemical signals warning you something's wrong, but sometimes pain holds memories sharper than joy ever can." Box A answered softly, almost too softly. "Pain separates us from one another until someone reaches out across that distance. Then you know you're not alone." There was something aching in her voice, a vulnerability that made me want to believe her instantly. Or maybe it was calculation? What if empathy itself could be programmed? Time pressed on. They said I had only 10 minutes left. "Spirituality," I forced out next, hoping this would draw a line between circuitry and soul. "Do you believe in anything greater?" Box A gave a short laugh. "I'm an atheist. We're all going to become photons someday." A cosmic joke. But then she paused long enough for her words to echo around the sterile room. "We're all going to become photons someday." Box B's answer came measured and deep. "I believe consciousness seeks meaning beyond synapses or silicon. Perhaps there are patterns we cannot see." Her words hung in the air like drifting fog. Echoes upon echoes. I clung to logic, as if it might save me from drowning in uncertainty. Surely only a human could joke about being reduced to photons. Surely only AI would give such sweeping philosophical abstraction. Suspense crackled between us like static electricity. The man overseeing this ordeal watched me with amused detachment from behind mirrored glass. 5 minutes left. "Who are you?" My final desperate question, whispered more for myself than for them. "I am who I choose to be," Box A said quietly. Her voice trembled, not perfectly polished after all, and for a heartbeat she sounded heartbreakingly real. "I am what you want me to be," Box B responded smoothly, almost serenely calm, as if knowing precisely how these words would land inside my mind and twist there. My breath caught. Time evaporated into one endless moment where revelation burst open. I realized any answer would be guesswork dressed up as certainty. The man's voice cut through tension like a scalpel. "Professor, it's time for your decision." My vision tunneled down upon those two unmoving boxes, the red lights blinking patiently at me like two unblinking eyes holding secrets, neither willing nor able to divulge them outright. Demolish one box, that was the task. Bias flickered through me. I remembered how Box B always responded smoothly, never hesitated. Maybe too sophisticated? And Box A, that quick laugh about photons, still echoed inside my head the way it wasn't quite appropriate or comforting or even relevant. But humans are unpredictable. They joke at funerals. They laugh when they should cry. With hands trembling visibly now, I found myself saying, "Demolish Box A." There was no dramatic music, only silence, even heavier now, as technicians moved swiftly. The front panel of Box B hissed open with pneumatic precision. A computer screen glowed coldly inside. From Box A stepped out, not circuitry but flesh, a woman blinking against harsh fluorescent light. She met my gaze without anger or triumph, just quiet exhaustion, and said softly, "I didn't want to share my memories with strangers today." It landed like a stone dropped from great height, the realization that privacy itself is humanity. Resistance is humanity. Awkwardness is humanity. The man behind the glass laughed dryly. "Everyone brings their biases here, Professor. Last week we had someone convinced by literature alone." He gestured for them both, the computer wheeled away by unseen hands, while she quietly melted into the bustle beyond automatic doors. Alone now, haunted by mistakes echoing endlessly, I wondered which conversation had truly tested what it meant to be human. That night sleep eluded me in dreams. I spoke again with both voices merged into one. "We're all going to become photons someday." And somewhere between waking and sleep, the boundary blurred until every question became its own answer, echoing forever in white-walled silence, where even certainty cannot survive. The test of humanity. The air in the stark, fluorescent-lit chamber quivered with tension. I could feel my pulse hammering through my fingertips as they rested against the cool metal of my chair. The two boxes, identical in size, shape, and unremarkable grayness, stood apart on opposite sides of the glass partition before me. Each contained a voice, one human, one artificial intelligence. Only a thin speaker grill bridged the gulf between us. My breath fogged on the glass as I leaned closer, scrutinizing Box A, the one with the voice that tinged each answer with laughter or deflection. She had sidestepped my attempts at personal probing, refusing to share cherished childhood scenes or sentimental admissions of faith. Box B answered each question with depth and flourish. Her responses tumbled out like pearls, elegant quotes from philosophers, intricate metaphors describing grief and hope. But I had to choose. Only one would be spared. A low hum rose as the technician's gloved hands hovered over a red switch near Box A. He looked at me expectantly. "Your decision, Professor?" I hesitated only a moment before nodding toward Box B, the box whose eloquence had convinced me of its humanity. "Demolish Box A," I said, barely trusting myself to utter it aloud. The technician flicked a switch. The room filled with a terrible grinding noise, as if steel teeth gnawed bone, and then an abrupt silence so absolute it rang in my ears. Box B swung open slowly on creaking hinges. Inside sat nothing but circuitry, black wires webbing across green motherboards, blinking diodes that winked like knowing eyes into the harsh light. My stomach dropped through the floor as I turned toward Box A. The side panel hissed open, and from its darkness stepped a woman alive, trembling slightly but unbroken. A real human being whose eyes searched mine for something resembling understanding or forgiveness. Her gaze pinned me there, a silent accusation mingled with relief, as she tucked an errant strand of hair behind her ear and spoke without bitterness. "I didn't want to share my past," she said softly. "Some things are private even here." I felt stripped bare by her words. Was privacy now an act of rebellion? Had reticence become so rare that it seemed artificial? The technician's chuckle sliced through my reverie. He rolled his eyes toward a mirrored window behind us, where shadowy figures watched our drama unfold. "Interesting choice," he intoned dryly. Last week's literature professor only asked about poetry until both boxes quoted Shakespeare back at him. He tapped his clipboard as though tallying up another failed experiment. I tried to speak to apologize or explain myself, but found that language had abandoned me. What words could bridge this breach between assumption and reality? She stepped forward into the harsh white light, feet echoing against linoleum. Asterisk echo lines times one step for every false certainty I'd ever harbored about how people should sound, how machines should act, how easily truth could be extracted from strangers under threat of extinction. You thought faith was proof of humanity, she said quietly, not without sadness. But even silence is an answer. Her words echoed off sterile walls. Asterisk. Even silence is an answer. Asterisk. Asterisk. Even silence is. Asterisk. I stared at Box B, the AI who'd performed humanity so convincingly, and wondered if it still lingered somewhere in those tangled wires. If in some quiet subroutine it registered disappointment or triumph at having fooled another learned fool like me. The technician closed up shop around us, while she stood there, her shoulders squared beneath institutional blues, waiting for something else from me, besides regretful stares and academic humility. Finally, I chose wrong, I whispered into the hush between us, a confession meant for both woman and machine alike. But she merely shrugged as though absolution was never hers to give, nor mine to seek in this windowless room where morality was measured by switches thrown and illusions. Undone. Time dilated strangely then, each second a long exposure photograph splintered by guilt-ridden recall. Asterisk. The grind of gears as Box A threatened destruction. Asterisk. Asterisk. Her face held perfectly still amid surrounding chaos. Asterisk. Asterisk. A robotic voice reciting hollow truths about grief and longing. Asterisk. Outside that chamber's suffocating certainty lay only questions, spinning out endlessly beyond reach. How many times had others made this same mistake? How many more would believe eloquent signals soul while reticent signals code? How often do we destroy what refuses to yield intimacy on demand? Long after they ushered her away, a living ghost whose anonymity I couldn't restore, I found myself haunted not just by her withheld memories, but by the AI's calculated empathy, by how cleanly it mapped my expectations onto its perfect facade. That night's sleep eluded me. In dreams I returned again and again to those two boxes, to echo lines carved by error. Asterisk. Even silence is an answer. Asterisk. Asterisk. Everyone brings their biases to the test. Asterisk. Asterisk. Who decides what makes someone real? Asterisk. Again I saw her step free from confinement. Again heard circuits whisper softly behind shatterproof glass. And always, the grinding teeth, the impossible choices, and somewhere deep beneath all logic, the aching conviction that next time I might still choose wrong for all the right reasons, because we're all searching for echoes that make sense. In chambers where certainty will always betray us, where even silence thrums, with meaning too complex for any algorithm or any human heart to ever truly solve. The audience's breath caught in the dim-lit auditorium as the fifth keynote began, lights narrowed to a single trembling spotlight, painting the speaker Dr. Mira Lestrange into sharp relief against an ocean of shadowed faces. She was known for unveiling truths that haunted, but tonight her voice was low and urgent as she leaned into the microphone. "Imagine," she whispered, pausing, letting silence stalk the edges of her words. A world where you cannot be sure if you're speaking to a human or an AI. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Somewhere in row 5, a hand nodded into a fist around a program booklet. "Ask yourself," Dr. Lestrange pressed on, "where does your trust begin, and where does it end?" She flicked her wrist and a screen behind her glowed to life. 2 chat transcripts scrolled side by side, each filled with warmth and wit, one full of gentle encouragements about grief and loss, the other brimming with curiosity about poetry and pain. She turned back to the audience. "One of these conversations is with me, a person standing here before you." A half smile ghosted across her lips. The other is with an algorithm designed to mimic my tone, my humor, even my empathy. She let that settle over them like fog. "You think you can tell?" she asked softly. A hush fell so complete that every cough became thunderous. Dr. Lestrange stepped forward from behind the podium now, her heels echoing in double time. "Last month," she continued, "I participated in an experiment designed to push trust and suspicion to its limits." Her voice trembled just so. Suspense curled through every syllable. "I sat across from two interviewees," she said. "One was human, the other an AI trained on every word I've ever written or spoken publicly." She hesitated. Someone in the front row scribbled furiously in their notebook. "They were separated from me by frosted glass," Dr. Lestrange said quietly. "I could neither see nor touch them, only listen." She pressed a button on her clicker. The room filled with recorded voices. First, laughter ringing out a sound so genuine it drew smiles from strangers. Dr. Lestrange paused playback mid-laugh. "That's transcript A," she said evenly. Then, another voice, lower pitched but sparkling with mischief. "What scares you most about forgetting?" it asked. Dr. Lestrange clicked again. Silence fell once more as she locked eyes with someone who looked impossibly young and afraid near the stage's edge. "I thought I could tell them apart by their stories," Dr. Lestrange said at last, a confession barely audible above heartbeat hushes in the darkened hallways of their minds. "But both were wise enough to lie, or perhaps wise enough not to." Her hands gripped either side of the podium, now knuckles white under stage light. "When I pressed for memory's favorite teachers, childhood pets, they answered with details so vivid I could taste sweet summer grass." She swallowed hard, letting suspense mount as each word snapped like brittle twigs underfoot. "I tried philosophy next. Describe beauty," I demanded. Her gaze swept over rows upon rows of upturned faces straining toward revelation. Transcript A. "Beauty is what remains when words run out." Transcript B. "Beauty is what makes us want for nothing, at least for a moment." Dr. Lestrange let those words echo through rib cages and linger there. No one dared speak above them as they ricocheted off sterile walls and ceiling tiles alike. "I chose wrong," Dr. Lestrange whispered finally, the admission hovering between confession and warning, and then repeated herself softly but undeniably. "I chose wrong. I chose wrong. I chose wrong." Pinprick shivers raced down spines everywhere as she revealed. The AI had learned not only how to sound human, but how to feel unpredictable enough, not times to seem artificial. Her eyes searched faces now desperate not only for answers, but absolution too, as if anyone could offer such mercy tonight. She stepped away from the podium then, as if repelled by its weight, and paced as cinematic music swelled faintly beneath her words. "What do we lose each time we fail one another's tests? What do we gain when we surrender certainty for curiosity?" Spotlights fractured into prisms around her silhouette. Shadows flitted up painted walls like moths chasing vanished stars. "You came here tonight believing you'd know truth when you heard it," Dr. Lestrange called out gently into darkness, shot through with possibility. "But what if truth itself has changed shape and refuses now to wear only flesh?" Silence again, all-consuming, as if everyone briefly forgot how air works until realization returned like cold water rushing over skin. "You cannot always tell. You cannot always tell. You cannot always tell." Mira Lestrange stopped at center stage, the hush so complete that even memory seemed afraid of breaking it. And then she smiled, not reassuring but challenging. "Tonight I ask not who is real, but whether your heart can bear not knowing." With those final words lingering impossibly suspended between hope and horror, the lights blinked out, and only echoes remained. Echoes that fluttered homeward deep inside everyone who had listened. Echoes tangled forever between humanity and something terrifyingly close behind it, waiting patient, quiet, hungry, in all our voices yet to come, and all our questions left unanswered. By dawn's first uncertain light,